I'm excited for today. Today we're putting out some ryegrass over top of the Kikuyu for some winter colour. So I'm going to show you guys all the steps it takes to do this, exactly how I'm doing it. And then obviously in a couple of weeks you guys are going to see some results as well. But let's get this down today and get it done. Yo mate, what up? Welcome to another lawn tip vid. So we've got all our gear here ready to go. We've got the seeder, we've got the top dresser. We're going to be scalping this area here, taking off all of the top growth as well. And last week we also put down some plant growth regulator on this area to slow down the growth. So let's talk about the steps on how to do this and how it's all going to work. So step one was putting some plant growth regulator on this area last week. We went at a higher rate, 40 mil per 100 square meters, to really just knock the growth on this so that our ryegrass has a fighting chance to germinate and get above the height of this grass. So that's step one. Step two is going to be scalping back this lawn. So scalping basically means cutting the lawn down below where the green growth is, down into the crowns, so where the leaf shoots from. So we're going to scalp it down so there's no green growth left here. There may be a tiny bit, but there won't be much. Get rid of all this top growth and expose the soil so our seed can have contact with it, germinate well, but also root down into the soil below. If I sowed it on top of this grass right now, it would really struggle to hit the soil and would have really bad germination. We'd have had seed sitting on top and would have to root down that far just to get into the soil, which you need a ton of water to do that. I mean, you could do it, but I mean, first mow you do, you're probably just gonna pick up the seed anyway because it's sitting on top. So that's why we scalp. So let's scalp it now, scalp it back, get it brown, get it prepped for some nice seed to soil contact. So we're going to go the lowest setting on this mower. Now you don't need to go back to dirt. You want to leave a little bit of the turf there, or the crowns at least, just so we don't get as much erosion, so the seeds aren't going to wash away when we've got a big storm. So it'll be good to leave a little bit there, but just expose that soil there. So we'll go as low as we can on this. Might need to get the rotary mower out the walk behind to get a little bit lower, but we're going to make sure we collect all of this as well and don't leave clippings on there. We want to remove all of that, as I said again, so we expose the soil. So we'll cut this down, assess how it looks, and I'll show you guys how we want to be aiming for it to look so that we get the best results. Well, we scalped down very nicely there. I ended up taking the scalping wheels basically off the deck of that mower, so it scalped down lower. So we got a little bit lower than we usually do with that mower, which is great. Handy to have that. Man, that was a dusty mess. I could not even find my mask to stop the dust, so I was basically holding my breath the whole time. But yeah, be aware, it is a messy job, but it's what you need to do to thin the canopy out. You could technically groom it or scarify it if you really wanted to. Just don't recommend you go too heavy, because doing a ryegrass overseed will actually thin out your turf a bit as well, just because that's what ryegrass tends to do. Now you can see we've scalped nicely in some spots. Some spots are not as thin, but they're thin enough to get seed down in there and we can see the soil. So that's what we're aiming for. That is like probably the thickest I'd leave it. What you doing, dog? Seed will still be able to drop down in there, which is good. Oi. So the next step is to put out our ryegrass. Now I'm putting out my Lawn Tips blend of ryegrass, a couple of blend of SR varieties. Now I love this grass because of the density and the colour with it. As you've seen around my golf green, nice dark green, has nice colour, quick germination on ryegrass, 3 to 5 days, which is good. And it's great because we can spray it out of this area come springtime with something like Lawn Row. So it's not going to stay in here throughout the whole of summer. We still want to bring our kike back. We don't want to leave the ryegrass in here because they'll just start fighting with each other. And you'll find the kike will actually thin out over time. And then when it comes to summer, it's really, really hard to keep water up to ryegrass unless you're watering every 2 to 3 days in the heat of it, sometimes daily if it's getting really, really hot. So put this out today at about, we're going to go a little bit of a higher rate, 3 kilos per 100 square meters. Now, on the back of the bag, it does actually have recommendations for sowing your seed as well. So we've got over sowing rates. We've also got new lawn sowing rates. So you basically go half rate. to what you normally would when you're oversowing. We're going to bump it up a little bit higher because I want a nice dense turf. We've also got instructions on the bag if you need some further help or want to see it in written form and not just by video. But let's put it out now. We're going to use this drop spreader just here. So we're not going to use my broadcast spreader, we're going to use the drop spreader because it's going to drop the seed down into the soil instead of flicking it out into my garden beds, which I've done in the past. Do not recommend it. So something like this is just from Bunnings. I think they're about $70 from memory, but it's just going to drop the seed down and get us some nice seed to soil contact. Now, one question I get often about these spreaders is what setting do I put it on? I can't give you a definitive answer on that because it changes every time, but set it lower, so more closed the first time you go over. You're gonna have to go over in a couple of different directions anyway and just adjust it by eye. I'm starting on 10 and we'll open it up a little bit more if we need to on the second pass, but I'm gonna be putting out about 6 kilos over this whole area because we've got 200 square meters here. So the next step is one of the most important steps, and that is covering it with some sand or some soil. Now, in this case, since we're not looking for levels, we're not top dressing, we're just covering the seed. You can use soil here. Feel free to use like a peat moss or something. Feel free to use something that's going to retain a little bit more moisture. I'm using sand today because that's what I've got. But you can definitely use some sort of organic top dress or organic soil, as long as it hasn't got any weed seeds in it, and put it out to help retain moisture on this area. So I'm gonna put it out today. It's not gonna be heavy, it's just enough to cover the seed. So honestly, probably like 1/4 of a meter per 100 square meters. That's what we're aiming for, maybe a tiny bit more, but yeah, it's not to level it, it's just to help this seed germinate, retain some moisture, and really, really give it the best chance of surviving with the heat. So next thing, we need to get some nutrients into this soil just to help with the seed establishing very, very well. So we can put out some of my Lawn Tips Proliferate fertilizer, which is this just here. We're gonna go at 2 kilos per 100 square meters, so we're not gonna go nuts on the rate, but it's just gonna help with the root establishment, with the vigorous growth of the leaf as well. Sorry, make the leaf growth more vigorous, so make it nice and thick and lush. And tomorrow we're gonna add some liquid fertilizers as well, just to help with our seed germination, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. But today, we're getting this out. We put it down on seed day, so within a couple of days' time, when that seed starts germinating, it's gonna have some nutrients available to it. So put this out now. This is a great autumn time fertilizer as well. So if you're not overseeding, you're just looking to get your lawn ready for the winter time to help build up the root system and get it nice and healthy, Proliferate is a great high K fertilizer for that. All right, so here's the most important step. Make sure you listen in this process, because a lot of guys unfortunately get it wrong just because people don't understand how important this is. But you need to make sure you've got adequate water on the seed at all times. Do not let the seed dry out at all. So keep it wet, but don't flood it either. It's a bit tricky. So you need to basically water 4 to 5 times a day, 10 to 15 minutes each time that you water. Obviously, if you flood it, it'll start washing away your seed. It'll jump up in the puddles and become an uneven mess, and you won't get even germination across the place. And if it's too wet like that, as well as in like it's floating in water, it's got nowhere down to root either. So make sure you do it properly. So generally I go 7 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then normally like around 3 because it's the hottest part of the day, and then around 5 or 6 o'clock as well to set it up for the night. So that's like 4 to 5 waters. To be honest, that's how much I generally do when we've got warmer temps. If it's cooler, obviously you can back the watering off, but make sure you're watering at all times. Now, something like this Sumi Soga here, which is available on my website, is perfect for seeding because it puts out such fine droplets and it's not going to wash and erode your soil at all. Whereas I had some problems when I was doing the green and the surrounding areas because there's so much high pressure in those sprinklers down there. There was some areas around the sprinklers that washed and everywhere else that sort of washed as well. Now I'm gonna have to slightly move this every single day, like once a day will be fine, just so this isn't laying on top of the seed underneath, so it gives that a chance to germinate as well. Just have to move it across like a couple of centimeters every single day. It won't really be a problem, but I just need to make sure I'm doing that. But realize that watering is probably the most important step to getting this to germinate properly. If you had to forget anything, forget the fertilizer, make sure you get the water down properly. Right, so I'm just chucking the sprinklers on now. I run them for about half an hour to start, just to really settle it in well. And then that should be enough until tomorrow morning. Water's coming in now, I can hear it. But yeah, I just need to make sure I keep up with that watering. Tomorrow I'm going to put some wetting agent out with some liquid ferts as well to help aid with germination. So we'll talk about that in the morning. But biggest thing is, as soon as you've got your sand down and your fertilizer down, get that water out as quickly as you can and get this thing going. Now we should expect to see germination hopefully in 3 to 4 days. It's quite warm at the moment, so it should honestly be perfect. We have this perfect sort of temps at the moment, so whoa, I'm getting wet. It's working. So you can see that has really, really fine droplets, which is perfect for our seed, because we're not going to get any wash, but that's going to soak into the soil nicely. Well, that's fresh. So putting out our liquid fert mix now. Now I probably should have done this yesterday, to be honest, before I watered in, because I've got to leave this on the leaf for a little bit. So ideally, if you can do something like this, put it down before you do your first water. I was just pressed for time a little bit yesterday. Should have honestly organised myself a little bit better. But yeah, get it out. I've got in here some Tricure wetting agent to help with moisture in the seed and in the soil as well. I've got some roots in there, my roots product, to also help with that germination. Also got some fungicide in there and also some insecticide just to help with germination rates and also to help with protecting it against Pythium, because we do not want to get Pythium in here, which is a disease that you tend to get in seed, generally when there's a lot of moisture about, and it is very possible if you've either got too much seed down, or sometimes it just happens, you can't predict it, but it depends on the weather. So we're going to get this out now. I'll chuck up what products they use on the screen as well, but let's get it done. Well, now comes the fun part, which is waiting for the seed to germinate. Should see something by the weekend, I would say, so I'll have some photos for you guys. Hopefully by the weekend, we'll see. We'll see how things progress out. But the thing is now, remember, keep up the water. I'll look at doing my lawn tips mix next week once we've got some germination on the area, just to help kick a little bit more growth, get this thing nice and established and help it to tiller nicely and be nice and thick. But apart from that, it's a waiting game. Anyway, thanks guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something in that. If you want to follow along with the process, I'll be doing updates constantly. So if you even want to tag along and do it as well, I'll be showing every little thing that I do to get this thing looking lush and pure. Whether that includes some overseeding, if we get some washout, some problems we deal with, I'll be showing all of that. So yeah, looking forward to it. Anyway, see yous in the next vid.